Vosteed has been a relatively unknown brand for me, and even though they found some success with the Raccoon, nothing really from them struck much interest. However, that all changed when the Psyop lineup was announced. Unfortunately, this lineup featured some premium materials, and that reflected in the price, as this one comes in around $120. However, Vosteed recently ran a really significant sale, and I was able to pick up this mini Psyop to try out. I've really been excited about this knife, but after getting it in hand, I have some concerns. So let's dive in and break it all down. First, let's quickly go over some of the materials and the specs. This is a closed length of 3.8 inches and an overall length of just 6.49 inches. Overall, it's pretty freaking small. If we compare this to some of my other favorites, like the Kershaw Bel Air or even the Kaiser Drop Bear, we can see how much smaller it is. You're definitely losing some length here in the blade. This is coming in with a 2.69-inch drop point blade of Elmax steel, and it features a flat grind and a really nice satin finish. The blade can be deployed by either the thumb studs or the crossbar lock, and the action is pretty nice, but more on that later. Moving down to the handles, this is coming with this really striking blue micarta, and I'm absolutely team micarta when compared to other handle materials out there like G10, but I will say I'm not loving this specific micarta as it's pretty rough and feels almost kind of dry. This is coming with an aluminum backspacer, and I think it looks really good and helps kind of give this a more complete premium feel. This also features a rather vanilla deep carry pocket clip with recessed screws, and this can be used for either left or right hand tip up carry. Due to its small size, the weight is no problem at 1.84 ounces. This is much smaller than I would traditionally carry, but overall it's a pretty nice little folder. So on paper, everything looks pretty solid. Let's go into what I like and more importantly, what I don't. So what do I like? For one, just the overall look and shape. I think it's just a really cool, aggressive looking knife, and fortunately it functions well due to the shape. Even though it's small, the handle shape is ergonomic and it's pretty nice. Your thumb rests along the spine, the shape just feels intentional. For how small it is, it's surprisingly comfortable. Next up, I really like the small little details as it's very minimal branding on the blade, no big billboarding, and I really like this aluminum backspacer, just makes it feel complete and finished. Another thing I like is the blade steel. Elmax is a really strong pick, has a good balance of toughness, edge retention, and corrosion resistance. Overall, this carries really well. It's really lightweight and small, it's just super pocketable. Now for some of the things that leave me wanting a bit more. First up is the obvious one, it's just the size. It just feels too small. While it's compact, it might just be too extreme for me. It disappears in the pocket and in the hand. Next up is the micarta quality. I mentioned earlier that the micarta feels rough and cheap. When we compare this to some other micarta, such as on the Civivi Sikoke or even the Kaiser Bug Eye, this just feels so much rougher and not as smooth. This micarta just feels so much more smooth and oiled compared to this. This just feels like it could use some sanding or polishing and just isn't that pleasant to touch. It just feels unfinished and cheap. Another thing that irks me is the action. Even though it's pretty snappy, it still falls behind my other crossbar locks like the Kaiser Drop Bear, the Kershaw Bel Air, or even the Hogue Deco. One thing I noticed is that the spring tension isn't great. I've noticed this one to bounce out of the handle when closing it, and you really kind of need to give it a flick to close it. Last thing is a value concern. For $120, if you're expecting a more refined feel, you're not going to get it here. Don't get me wrong, this is a nice knife, but it's not a $120 knife. When comparing it to knives in this price range, again with like the Bel Air or the Hogue Deca, it's really hard to recommend this one. So who is this knife really made for? I think it's kind of ideal for a small EDC if you want something pretty light and pocketable, as this really disappears in the pocket and hardly leaves a footprint. This is also great for somebody who values steel performance, as Elmax is a really big step up from a lot of more commonly found steels. However, this knife can be less ideal for people with larger hands or just prefer more heft. Even me with smaller hands, this is just tiny, so expect that. Also, if you expect something over $100 to automatically feel premium, you'll be disappointed. Though the blade steel is nice, there really aren't any premium materials here. The micarta is lacking. There isn't titanium, there's no tie clip or tie backspacer. Overall, it just doesn't feel like the price tag, and instead this feels more like a knife half the cost. For $120, I think it's too expensive given how small it is and how cheap the micarta feels. But if you catch it on sale or you highly value lightweight and LMAX steel, it's a very compelling little blade. For me personally, I just find it too small and the action a bit too finicky to really want to keep it around and use it. I really do love the look of it though, so I might try to pick up its big brother someday, but for now, this is a miss for me. However, I will put a link below down in the description if you're interested. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this knife. Let me know down in the comments if this is something you would carry or if its size puts you off. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll catch you in the next one.